The Super Bowl champion of the 2024-2025 NFL season is going to be...
My NFL playoff predictions are here, and now the battle begins. The strongest teams are set to clash in a single elimination showdown, where only the toughest will survive. From the thrilling wildcard matchups to the Super Bowl, every snap counts, every drive matters, every point is crucial. Get ready for the most intense, hard-hitting, and thrilling football of the year. Now get ready for the NFL playoffs. Who will rise to the top and claim the coveted Vince Lombardi trophy? Will it be a 3-repeat of the Kansas City Chiefs, or will it be a Cinderella story? Join us as we dive into the excitement of the NFL playoffs. It's going to be a wild ride. So here's my AFC and NFC teams making the playoffs this season, and here are the seedings for the postseason. Let the playoffs begin.
The Miami Dolphins versus the Baltimore Ravens.
The Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens have met each other in the playoffs twice in their history. The last playoff matchup between these two teams was in the AFC wildcard game in January of 2009, with the Baltimore Ravens winning that game by a score of 27-9. With my prediction of the Miami Dolphins making the playoffs this year, that would be their third consecutive appearance in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the wild card game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, they lost that game 26-7. At the moment, the Dolphins haven't won a single playoff game since 2000, and since then they are winless in their last 5 playoff appearances. The Baltimore Ravens will be making their third consecutive playoff appearance this year. When Lamar Jackson took over as the starting QB, he helped lead the team to the playoffs in 5 of 6 seasons. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, they lost that game 17-10. So my prediction for this AFC wildcard matchup between these two teams is that I have the Baltimore Ravens winning this game and moving on to the next round.
The New York Jets versus the Houston Texans.
This matchup between the New York Jets and the Houston Texans will be the first ever playoff meeting in their history. The two teams haven't played each other in the regular season since December of 2023, where the Jets won that game 30-6. And there will be a preview of this matchup this season on October 31st. The New York Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2010, and this appearance would be their 6th overall appearance since the beginning of the 21st century. For this season, the Jets will be making a playoff spot, and will have their first winning record since 2015. The Houston Texans ended their playoff drought last year, and this playoff appearance will be their 2nd consecutive in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the AFC divisional round against the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 34-10. Houston will be looking to have their deepest playoff run in franchise history this season. So my prediction for this wildcard game is that the Houston Texans will win and they will move to the next round.
The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills.
The Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills have met each other 3 times in the playoffs. The last time these two teams have met in the playoffs was in the AFC divisional round in January of 2023. The Cincinnati Bengals won that game by a score of 27-10. The Cincinnati Bengals unfortunately didn't make the playoffs last season, but I have them redeeming themselves by making it back to the postseason this year. Since Joe Burrow became the starting QB, he has led the team to 2 playoff appearances and 1 Super Bowl appearance in the time that he's been there. At the moment, the Buffalo Bills have made the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 27-24. With my prediction of the Bills making the playoffs again for the new season, this would be their 6th consecutive playoff appearance and would be also their 5th straight AFC East Division title. So my prediction for this AFC wildcard game is that the Cincinnati Bengals will win and will upset the Buffalo Bills at home, and they will move on to the divisional round.
The Seattle Seahawks versus the Detroit Lions.
The Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions have only met each other once in the playoffs in their history. The only time these two teams have faced each other was back in the NFC wildcard game on January 7th of 2017. when the Seattle Seahawks won that game by a score of 26-6. The Seattle Seahawks didn't make the playoffs last season, but I have them redeeming themselves by making it back to the playoffs this year. Since Geno Smith got a second chance and became the starting QB full-time in 2022, they have had back-to-back winning campaigns with one playoff appearance in that time. In this game, the Seahawks will be looking to win their first playoff game since 2019. The Detroit Lions are coming off their first playoff appearance since 2016, which was their best ever season in franchise history. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 34-31. Detroit will be making their second consecutive playoff appearance in a row, which hasn't happened to them since the 1990s. So my prediction for this NFC wildcard game is that the Detroit Lions will win a close one over the Seahawks, and they will advance to the divisional round.
The Los Angeles Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles.
In the history of the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles, they have faced each other a total of 3 times. The last playoff meeting between these two teams was back in the 2002 NFC Championship game, when the St. Louis Rams won that game by a score of 29-24. The Los Angeles Rams made the playoffs last season after missing it the year before, and with my prediction of them making it back again this year, that will be their second straight in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the wild card game against the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 24-23. The Philadelphia Eagles have currently made the playoffs for 3 straight seasons in a row, and that includes a Super Bowl appearance in 2022. Now, with them making the playoffs again this season, that would be the 4th time in a row, which will be the longest streak for them since the early to mid-2000s. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately for them, they lost that game by a score of 32-9. So my prediction for this playoff game is that the underdog Los Angeles Rams will upset the Eagles and will move on to the next round.
The Green Bay Packers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met each other twice in the playoffs in their history. The last time these two teams have met in the playoffs was in the NFC Championship game on January 24th of 2021. When the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game by a score of 31-26, the Green Bay Packers weren't expected to make the playoffs last season, but they did, in a transition season from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers. Unfortunately for them, they lost that game by a score of 24-21. Now for this playoff appearance for the Green Bay Packers, they are looking to have a deeper playoff run and are expected to be a Super Bowl contender this year. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have currently made the playoffs for 4 straight seasons in a row, and in that time they have won their division 3 consecutive times. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 31-23. With my prediction of Tampa Bay making the playoffs again for the new season, this would be their 5th consecutive playoff appearance and would be also their 4th straight division title. So my prediction for this wildcard game is that the Green Bay Packers will win this game and will advance to the next round.
The Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens.
The Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens have met each other in the playoffs twice in their history. The last time these two teams have met in the playoffs was in the AFC divisional round on January 20th of 2024, when the Baltimore Ravens won that game by a score of 34-10. In those 2 playoff appearances between these two teams, the Baltimore Ravens have won both of those games. The Houston Texans in their history have made it to the divisional round 4 times in 7 playoff appearances, but they haven't ever gotten past that round and have never made the AFC Championship game. The Baltimore Ravens are looking to get back to the AFC Championship game for the 2nd consecutive season in a row. Since Lamar Jackson became the starting QB, he has never won multiple playoff games in a season before, and he will be looking to end that streak this year. So my prediction for this AFC divisional round game is that the Baltimore Ravens will win and will be making their 2nd straight AFC Championship game in a row.
The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs have faced each other in the playoffs twice. The last playoff matchup between these two teams was in the AFC Championship game on January 29th of 2023, when the Kansas City Chiefs won that game by a score of 23-20. In the two total playoff games between these two teams in their history, both teams have won one game each. Even though the Cincinnati Bengals missed out on the playoffs last year, Cincinnati will be looking to advance to the AFC Championship game for the third time in 4 years. The Kansas City Chiefs are the defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and they are the first team to do that since the New England Patriots did it from 2003 to 2004. In the Super Bowl last season, they played against the San Francisco 49ers, and they won that game in dramatic fashion by winning it in overtime by a score of 25-22. So my prediction for this AFC divisional round game matchup between these two teams is that the Kansas City Chiefs will win and will advance to another AFC Championship game appearance.
The Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions.
The Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions are division rivals, and they have faced each other in the playoffs twice. With the last playoff meeting between these two teams was back in the 1994 NFC wildcard game, when the Green Bay Packers won that game by a score of 16-12. Overall, in the two playoff games between these two teams, both games have been won by Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers will be looking to advance back to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 2020. The Detroit Lions are looking to win their first ever playoff game against their arch nemesis, the Green Bay Packers, and they are looking to go back to the NFC Championship game for the second year in a row. So my prediction for this NFC divisional round game is that the Detroit Lions will win, and they will be heading back to the NFC Championship game.
The Los Angeles Rams versus the San Francisco 49ers.
The Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers are division rivals, and they have faced each other in the playoffs 2 times in their history. The last playoff matchup between these two teams was in the NFC Championship game on January 30th of 2022. When the Los Angeles Rams won that game by a score of 20-17. Overall, in those 2 playoff games between these two teams, both teams have won one game each. The Los Angeles Rams will be looking to make it back to the NFC Championship game for the first time since they won the Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers have made the playoffs in 4 of the last 5 seasons, and that includes making 2 Super Bowl appearances in 2019 and in 2023. In the Super Bowl last season, they played against the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, they lost that game by a score of 25-22. Since the beginning of the 2010s, the 49ers have made 3 Super Bowl appearances, losing all of them. So, my prediction for this NFC divisional round game is that the San Francisco 49ers will win, and they will be heading to the NFC Championship game.
The AFC Conference Championship game, the Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
This AFC Championship game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs will be a rematch of last season's AFC Championship game. That was the first ever conference championship matchup between these two teams in their history. In that AFC Championship game, the Kansas City Chiefs won that game by a score of 17-10. With the first ever meeting between these two teams was back in the 2011 wild card game. Overall, these two great franchises have played each other in the playoffs twice, with both teams winning one game each. The Baltimore Ravens are looking to make their first Super Bowl appearance since 2012. On the other hand, the Kansas City Chiefs are looking to make history this year by going to their 3rd straight Super Bowl appearance, which no team has ever won 3 Super Bowl championships in a row in league history. So my pick to win the AFC Championship game is the Baltimore Ravens.
The NFC Conference Championship game, the Detroit Lions versus the San Francisco 49ers.
Another rematch of last season's NFC Championship game matchup between the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. In that NFC Championship game between these two teams, the 49ers won that game by a score of 34-31. Overall, these teams have faced each other in the playoffs 3 times, with the first ever meeting coming in December of 1957. In those 3 playoff games between these two teams, the 49ers have won 2 games and the Lions have won 1 game. The Detroit Lions will be looking to win their first ever NFC Championship game and make their first ever Super Bowl in franchise history. The San Francisco 49ers, on the other hand, will be looking to go back to the Super Bowl to redeem themselves after losing the Super Bowl last season. So I believe that this game will be a really tough battle between these two teams, and my prediction is that the Detroit Lions will be making their first ever Super Bowl appearance this season.
In Super Bowl 59, I have the Baltimore Ravens versus the Detroit Lions.
Super Bowl 59 will be the first ever for the Detroit Lions, and it also will be the 3rd ever appearance for the Baltimore Ravens. In the regular season, these two teams have faced each other a total of 7 times in their history. In those 7 regular season games that these two teams have played against each other, the Baltimore Ravens have won 6 games, and the Detroit Lions have won only 1 game. That 1 win for the Lions came in the 2005 season. The last regular season game between these teams was in Week 7 on October 22nd of 2023, where the Baltimore Ravens won that game by a score of 38-6. The Baltimore Ravens will be hungry to win their 3rd ever Super Bowl appearance in team history. The underdog Detroit Lions will be playing in the biggest game in franchise history, and they will also be hungry to win. This Super Bowl could easily be an all-time great. Super Bowl 59 will be a really tough battle between these two teams. So my prediction is that the Detroit Lions will win their first ever Super Bowl in team history over the Baltimore Ravens, and that will be the most memorable game in franchise history.
So those are my NFL playoff predictions. What are your Super Bowl predictions this year? Let me know down in the comments section. So if you're new, please consider subscribing and also hit that notification bell. And if you love sports, this is definitely the place for you. And also share this video with more sports fans. For more NFL videos and for more football videos, please click up here. And thank you so much for watching. This is Sports Gear, and I will see you next time. Just keep loving sports.